Okay, so in this video, I will be looking through the announcement for the latest update. Now, to be entirely honest, I have already looked through this announcement before, and I already have pulled up the game, and I've looked at the various units and stats in the game. And I'm going to be so this update comes as a result of the anniversary update and the big fuss that was kicked up from that. The developers said that they didn't think that they got it right, so they were going to release a new major update later this month. Well, this is that update. And if I'm going to be entirely honest, it looks like they have just copy-pasted not everything from the PTE to the live version of the game, but it looks like they have copy-pasted. And well, actually, honestly, what it looks like is it looks like they have copy-pasted the PTE to the live version of the game, and then gone back and made just like a few balance changes here and there from the previous update. That's what it looks like. This is pretty much the PTE is now on live. Now I'm gonna go through this this update post. I'm not gonna try and I'm not gonna try and talk about any one thing too much, because if you're familiar with the PTE, you're gonna be pretty familiar with what's going on here. I will, however, try and give my thoughts about I will try and get my thoughts about the update itself at the end of the video. And, well, let's just say that there are some things that I like and there are some things that I don't. Anyway, gameplay balancing, technical improvements in spectator mode. A new update to the main version of the game has arrived. Observer mode, updated maps, improved performance and connection stability, a wide range of changes from the PTE branch, and of course many more quality of life improvements and bug fixes. Please note that's the day, July 30th, starting at 1300 MSK. I'm not sure what that stands for. I'm assuming it's like something standard time. Servers will be temporarily unavailable for the build deployment. For the build deployment, based on the current estimates, the main should take up to 3 hours. Added a new objective zone and spawn layout for district. I don't know how to pronounce some of these names. Bay of Winds and Kaliningrad. Added a new, significantly more advanced line of sight tool. Added the first iteration of observer mode. Hotkeys to enable disable weapons and real vision for the selected unit. I don't know what real vision is. Add ability to save and share color presets and unit labels. Improve the visualization of unit paths and action cues. Add an in-game chat during the map and deck selection phase, as well as the post-match results screen. Added the ability to mute players through the in-game chat, which also hides their markers. Improved various UI elements and unit voice lines. Max camera height has been increased. Multiple performance improvements across the board. Improved server-side processing of damage over time effects. Improved the logic used for pre-checking server availability for the entire lobby. Various improvements to interactions with unit ghosts. Ghosts can now be dragged and dropped through their labels and no longer appear near the cursor when purchasing units. Added a new replace option. Added a new replace option for a selected unit in the editor. Added a new altitude change and force fire nodes. I have seen I've seen some people asking for that one in particular. Added a cargo filter for on-trigger entered, on-trigger exit, and count unit nodes. Added support for dead units in the split unit and several other nodes. Improved on already shot nodes. Set ammo and set fuel now synchronized correctly over the network. Reverted changes. Remove deployment delay when dismounting infantry from ground transports. Replace the infinite supply ability with a new limited munition ability. I'm not sure what they mean by munition ability. Sneak ability from all vehicles. Sneak ability removed from all vehicles. I'm not sure what they mean by a new limited munition ability, because this is basically just the supply ability from the PTE. Reverted infantry healing rate from supply dumps. Honestly, I haven't had any chance to play around with it, but I don't see how that was a big deal. Aim time for all aircraft air-to-air missiles reverted. I would personally prefer if it just stayed at 60 seconds. Smokescreen duration from artillery standardized. Removed the 100% cover negate values for ground-launched ballistic missiles with cluster warheads. I'm not sure why, but like, I can understand why they did that in the first place, to give cluster ballistic missiles a little bit more flexibility against infantry and buildings. I don't think it was hurting too much, but I honestly don't know. And then they reverted the availability limits for the T-72B and the T-72B3. And personally, I think they should have just left those at 9 and 6 respectively. Because if I'm going to be entirely honest, I don't play Russian. Okay, I do not play Russian. I think it's very obvious I do not play Russian. The only Russian deck I have is the default one. And however, the thought of making a guard mech deck with 3 T90Ms and 6 T72B3Ms was probably the most... It was probably the closest to making a Russian deck that I have come pretty much since the game released. So this sucks. I think they should have just kept the availability limits like they were before. Seed and cruise missiles removed from the target list for the following weapons: the Igla S and the FIM-92K Stinger, only for radar-equipped SHORADs. I can't think of a radar-equipped SHORAD with Igla. Oh wait, no, there's a ZU-23-4. The 9M33M3 for the OSA AKM, and the 9M 311 for the Tunguska M, and the APKWS for the Striker. The Striker SHORAD. Honestly, this change kind of sucks. This change kind of sucks because, like, I know the Striker M SHORAD was pretty powerful against seed missiles, but I think the only thing you could have changed here was just remove the ability for the APKWS rockets to engage seed missiles, and I think it would have been fine. Okay, sure, it would have made the APKWS rockets useless, but I think everything else would have been fine. Another thing I'd like to point out on the subject of the Striker SHORAD that doesn't appear to be mentioned anywhere is the fact that the Striker SHORAD is 10 points more expensive base. So I don't know why, but it appears to be 10 points more expensive base. Game Core added a new dynamic income system. I'm guessing that's from the PTE. Added a new maximum reserve call-in limit of 1,500 points. And not sure what that means. Would like a bit more clarification on that. Added a new conquest game mode. I've seen some people like. I saw that some people like the conquest game mode from the PTE. I don't play multiplayer, so it's not that big of a deal for me. Increased resurrection timer after death for all units. This I do not care for at all. Spawn sides for both teams are now assigned randomly in standard matches. Delay between bursts of automatic weapons for vehicles no longer affected by stress. Resupply radius from supply dumps has been increased. I don't see the problem with the original 50-meter radius. So I'm not sure why. Like, this is what I'm getting at when I say that they've pretty much just taken the PTE and then put it on live. And this also comes with a lot of little changes that I don't think had any point. Like a bunch of little things from the PT that have a point. I think the 50 meter supply radius was fine. And I don't know what kind of income system they're talking about here, but anyway, let's just continue. Infantry, all infantry small arms has been reworked. LAT base stress value multiplier increased. I don't know what LAT is. I'm assuming that's light anti-tank. Could be a lot clearer. Underbarrel grenade launchers base stress value has been reduced. Infantry resist system inverted. The full percent available for the squad in a calm state. Moderate is shock and minimum is panic. Okay, I think that's how it was in the... So this actually brings up something interesting that you're going to see. Because it seems like when they wrote this article, either the person writing the article forgot about some of the changes they made in the July 2nd update, or they weren't aware of some of the changes they made in the July 2nd update, because this change, this was in the July 2nd update. Shock and panic states for infantry are now more distinctly separated. Suppression penalty for aim time has been increased. Squad loss prioritization has been adjusted. Defines the order which squad members are lost when taking enough damage. Added an over-damage system with a threshold 38 damage, allowing weapons to ignore infantry resist in open fields. Base tier optics for infantry has been increased. This is another one of those changes that I don't see a point for. Now, I saw a point for why they would dynamically increase it if infantry weapons could reach a range of 800 meters or further, or anti-tank weapons could reach a range of 1200 meters or further. That made sense. Just taking the optics of all the infantry and just upping it to 1400 meters it doesn't make sense to me. Also, on the subject of all infantry small arms being reworked, they've given them the PTE range values, shooting out to 500 meters. And I just want to touch on this real quick, because I made a video. No, actually, no. I'll just cover that at the end of this video. Aim time for all infantry ATGMs except terminal guided ones reduced and standardized. Infantry firing positions inside buildings have been adjusted to more easily hit tank roof armor. I actually did a test of this a couple weeks ago, and they had kept this, or they had added this in the previous patch, but these values were only halved. So it was only 50 meters from a 5-story building, 200 meters from a 9-story building, and 100 meters from a 9-story building, and then 200 meters from a high-rise. They added the VDV Sturm. They've adjusted the loadout to give us... Where's VDV? Infantry, VDV Sturm now has... Now they've separated the different type of rockets into two. Like, instead of just having 6 thermobaric rockets, you now have three thermobaric rockets and 3 regular rockets. which honestly I think is pointless. I thought it was pointless prior to the update, or at least not pointless, but it was kind of redundant prior to the update. But now that they've added the VDV PKP, which just has the regular anti-armor version, I think it's extra, or I think it literally is pointless now, because just give these guys a full thermobaric loadout. Because if you want anti-armor, you've got the PKP, and if you really want anti-armor, you've got the assault that has 2 RPGs. So just give them the thermobaric loadout. Guard Mostreliki has had an extra RPG-28 added, so that's nice. They've removed the AGS-17 team from Motorized. Okay. I'm not entirely sure why, but okay. They've added the Multipudorovka AGS customization option for PTO melts, which I remember is something that I actually did want to see, so that's not too bad, I guess. Where's PTO melts? So now you, instead of the two melts launchers, they lose a rifle, they get an AGS-17, and they get an RPG-7. Okay. That's nice. I don't think they should have removed the AGS-17 team from Motorized, but I think that's nice. I don't know, they might bring it back in the new Russian spec, but I don't think they should have removed it from Motorized in the first place. PDSS, the optic range for the DP-64s have been reduced. The cherry berries have been reworked. Their availability has gone down to 2, but then they've been reworked into a 12-man squad. This is pretty much how they were in the PTE. I said before, and I'll say it again, it looks like they've just taken the PTE, put it on live, and then changed some of the unit stats here and there to more conform to live. So you've got your your large 12-man CQC unit here. And then you have your standoff unit here. So, I mean, I don't mind the idea of the cherry berries going up to 12 guys. That's not that big of a deal. No. I'll get to it at the end of this video. Rezvedka had an additional RPG-26 added, but they've lost the PKM, so where is Rezvedka? There's Rezvedka. Yeah, they've lost the PKM, but now they have 4 RPG-26s. Marine Raiders, all the M1014s have been moved to secondary weapons, and they've gotten 4 extra Mark 18 CQBRs. So this is just going to crank their CQC ability even higher, because they now just have 4 extra rifles. So that's nice, I guess, but that's pretty much the exact same change from the PTE. Although, now that I think about it, I think on the PTE they actually had a total of 14 Mark 18 CQBRs. And then they've increased the squad size for all of the Armor Brigade units except for Cav Scouts, from 6 to 7. The Mech Riflemen have an additional M249. The Mech Riflemen AA they carry 2 more Stingers. And the Mech Riflemen MMG have an additional M240. They've also added the Mech Dragon loadout for the Mech Riflemen MMG. So this is now a 7-man. It looks like they've just given them an extra M4. This is 7-man. They've now got 2 M249s. This is a 7-man. This is a 7-man. And we also have the mech rifleman, or the mech dragon upgrade. So they do have some ATGM, which is nice, I guess. Airborne Riki has been reworked. So you have the standard loadout, you have the standard loadout, which has a sniper rifle and a Moz. And then you have the NGSW loadout, which has a light machine gun and an M107. And I find this very, very funny because I find this very, very funny because I'm honestly wondering if this is a test, just like a little experiment by the developers. Because when it comes to recon infantry, snipers are by far the best. Now, they also carry very big rifles, like for example the M107, and I think sniper teams would make good fire support infantry. The problem is that they also have the best stealth and the best optics of any infantry. Excuse me. Of any infantry unit in the game. I mean, they've got the best stealth of anything in the game. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When it comes to most recon infantry, anything they can see is going to be far more valuable than or whatever they see is going to be far more valuable than anything they can shoot. Because if they see it, that's going to allow you to use artillery airstrikes or some other thing to shoot it, and you don't actually have to put the squad in danger. And this is the driving problem with using snipers as fire support, because they've got the best optics. Like, okay, yeah, sure, they've got these big long-range rifles, which are nice, but they've got the best optics, they've got the best stealth, and they're just far better suited for sitting somewhere, being as quiet and as stealthy as they can, and then just looking and letting you see what they see. And if they're shooting things, then they're going to reveal their position and they're going to get targeted. And because sniper teams are generally small 2 or 3 man units, they're going to get erased pretty quickly. So what I wonder if... So one thing that I'm curious that the developers are trying to do is, if they're trying to make sniper teams more appealing, by giving a sniper rifle, or by testing to see if players are going to use sniper rifles more, by giving a sniper rifle to the airborne Riki, because this configuration was not in the PTE. Scouts receive an additional AT4 CSRS, go from 3 to 4. I'd like to point out that it went from 3 to 4 in the previous update, which is what I was saying with this. This seemed like it's written without the previous update in mind. Honestly, I think they might have just copy pasted a bunch of this stuff from the various PTE articles. Rangers, their 2 M249 pairs are now placed with 2 KAC AMGs, which aren't bad, but I'll get into that. Ranger CQC has had their law replaced by an M1E3 or an M3E1 Moz shooting HE. Now, I remember saying that I personally preferred if they just stuck with the disposable launchers, because the disposable launchers fire faster. And my opinion honestly hasn't changed. I also note that the range is only 400 meters, and I'm not sure why. Now, I said before in another video that you could give HE rockets to the Moz team, and I guess, but honestly, I think what I would do is maybe make a third upgrade for the Moz team that gives them the Moz, and then gives them like 9 HE rockets and 9 anti-tank rockets. But even then, I'm honestly hesitant to do that, because that might make them a little bit too flexible. Personally, I would just prefer that if these guys kept their laws. As for the KACs, I like seeing the KACs here, but the problem is, and oh no, I'll come back to that. The Green Berets, the M1014 has been made a secondary weapon, an additional HK416 on the main slot, and M10416 in the second slot. So now they have 3 HK416s and 2 M1014s. And the reason why the loadouts are kind of important is because even though these two guys have both an HK416 and an M1014, at a range of 200 meters or less, they're going to use both. Like, you're going to get DPM from both applied to the target. So this is why I think that Marine Raiders are going to get stupid in particularly close range, because they are shooting all 12 of their CQBRs and all 4 of their shotguns. Although, amusingly, I note that the 2 guys that have the grenade launchers, the weapons that you cannot use indoors, do not actually have... so there's one guy with the grenade launcher. Where's the other guy with the grenade launcher? The 2 guys with the grenade launchers... Oh, there he is. Do not have any other weapons. You would think that they would give them specifically a pair of shotguns. But I digress. What I was getting at was... they use all the weapons in the unit if you're within range. And the Baltic CQC infantry has had an extra law added. I do not know what either of these mean. So I think that could use some clarification. The Mark 48 and the KAC, the minimum distance has been removed. I actually like this change. The PKP Bullpup, the Mark 48, the KAC, and the Mini-Me Mark III, the aim time has been standardized. Firing range of all underbarrel grenade launchers has been standardized to 400 meters. The SV98, the DVL-10M1, the M48-5, and the M2010 firing range has also been standardized. I like this as well. The T5000 and the Mark 22 has had their ranges slightly increased, which, again, isn't that bad. Firing patterns for all tiered DMRs slightly reworked and covering nor reduced. I don't know. I'm hesitant about this one, because unless they're going to up the DPS accordingly, and I think they might have, then it seems kind of pointless to me to actually do that. What unit has DMRs? Troopers. Oh, they've lost their Or no, it's Troopers AA. No, they have not lost their DMR. Okay, that's nice at least. But I don't know. If I kind of prefer they didn't mess with the cover negation on the DMRs, is what I'm getting at. Although I think, emphasis on think, that they have actually upped the DPS on at least some of these. The melts firing range and acceleration has been increased. That can make the melts more useful, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. The melts M and the dragon firing range and acceleration has also been increased. This is one of those. This is another one of those things from the PTE that I don't see a point for, because I don't think it had that much of an impact. Honestly, I don't. I can kind of understand it, but I mean, I can kind of understand increasing the range of the melts M and the dragon, because that allows you to actually fire them while you're outside of autocannon range on IFVs, but I don't know. I don't really see a point for it, because I don't think the systems were overperforming that much, and if they were, I would prefer a price decrease rather than a range buff. The SPG-9 had its aim time reduced. The RPG-29 had its had its reload time increased. I think that means that the reload time reduced. The SRAW had its aim time reduced. These, I'm okay with. The pull run had its damage reduced. Again, I'm not sure why. And then we get to all this. And I'm not going to go over it. Like, if you want to read the individual figures, you can just pause the video. But, again, why? Like, were they overperforming that much? Why? Anyway, weapon supply costs have been adjusted. Light tier ATGMs, heavy tier ATGMs. I can kind of understand this one, but I think this is literally just a holdover from the PTE. Transport vehicles. Increased damage multiplier for transferred infantry from the final hit of a vehicle. Increased chance of squad casualties after auto dismounting from a destroyed vehicle. Infantry transport capacity has been added for the following scouts and ISR vehicles: 2 seats for the BRDM-2M, the BRM-1K, the IFAV, the Humvee LRAS, and the M1117. 3 seats for the Sarmat-2 and the M7A2B Fist, and then 4 seats for the BRDM-3, the 1V14, the Humvee RWS, and the MATV. So this is nice, but I honestly prefer if they just gave all of the 2C vehicles 3 seats, just to help fit in a slightly larger seating capacity. The MTLBVM had its seating capacity go up to 14, which I like. The Bradley had its seating capacity go up to 7, which makes sense because they increased the size of the mech units. The M113 had its seating go up to 14 as well, or the M113 family had its seating go up to 14. The AAVP had its seating go up to 22. I like both of these second ones here. Added, like, see, this is what I mean about them copy pasting it from somewhere else. Added a new resupply ability, which is not new at this point, to infantry transports with the following pattern: 250 kilograms for IFVs, APCs, and other armored vehicles with high seat capacity or autocannon / ATGMs. 400 kilograms for APCs and other armored vehicles with base capacities, and then 800 kilograms for specialized vehicles, which include the BM-01, the BTO, and the Warpig. Resupply speed for vehicles from vehicles' own supplies is half the speed of resupplying from supply dump. And then they've removed the stealth value for a number of the recon vehicles. And this, again, I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand why. So, and I'd like to point out that up here, somewhere up here, they removed the sneak ability from all the vehicles. So, this feels like, this, again, is why I say that it feels like they've just taken the PTE and they've tossed it onto live. And I don't think that's a good thing. Aim time for all vehicle ATGMs except terminal guidance missiles standardized at 1 to 2 seconds. Vehicle-based medium machine guns, heavy machine guns, and minigun aim time reduced. Which, I actually like this, honestly. Autocannons, vehicle-based AGL aim time reduced. Tank gun aim time reduced. This is actually kind of weird, because I was expecting it to be 2 to 3 seconds instead of 1.5 to 2.5, but it is a reduction, so I can't complain too much. Gun launch ATGM aim time reduced. A delay before auto smoke deployment adjusted. I'm not sure what that means. And then they've increased the base damage for tank shells. So, and they've also increased for more specialist ammunition here. They have, however, added the cover ignore values for, from the PTE, which, again, I like. The UAZ has the SPG-9 aim time has been reduced, which I believe has been done to match the aim time reduction up here. Yes. I mean, it's the same recoilless rifle. It's just one is on a tripod and the other's on a small truck. The BTO, the RPO-A aim time has been reduced. The Warpig, the Fletcher aim time has been reduced. And the TGB, the aim time for the recoilless rifle has been reduced. And then we have fire support. Minimum dispersion for MLRS has been increased. Howitzer and MLRS firing range has been increased by additional 500 meters. And I'm just going to stop there, and I'm going to say that this is... When I say that they have just copy-pasted the PTE over to live, this is by far the single most notable example. Because they have taken all the artillery changes from the PTE and they've just shoved them onto live. So instead of going over this over again, I'm just going to just scroll through it slowly, and anyone who wants to look at this, they can pause the video, they can read anything that they want to read themselves. I'm not going to go over it, and honestly, I'm going to come back to this at the end of the video. Okay, now we have anti-aircraft. High altitude firing range has been reduced for most short range SAMs. That's a change that I did kind of want to see. AA guns, high altitude firing range reduced and capped. Although, one thing I will like to point out, and this is very, very annoying because this is one of the most irksome changes from the PTE, is the low and high altitude range on the Panzer's missiles is the same. And I do not understand why. AA gun aim time reduced. SHORAD and self-propelled anti-aircraft gun high altitude radar multipliers have been reduced to 1, which is a little low. I would have gone for 1.25, especially since they have cut down the high altitude firing range of short-range SAMs. SHORAD and a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun turret rotation speed has been significantly increased. SAM vertical launch animation speed has been increased Fixed A systems ignoring self-defense priority against seed missiles. Burst interval between launches for all medium and long-range SAMs has been increased. Okay. Firing range and radar multipliers have been adjusted for the following SAMs. It's worth noting that there is no distinction between medium and long range in game. Like this, the only distinction between a medium range and a long range SAM is right here. And they've adjusted the radar ranges for the SAMs across the board. Now this is very similar to what they did towards the end of the PTE. The only difference is that the long-range SAMs have a 2x multiplier against aircraft at low altitude, whereas in the PTE it only had a 1x multiplier. So, and then for the S-300 variants and the PAC-2, they've also reduced the damage to 20, which is still enough to one-shot planes, but the missile basically has to smack into the plane in order to do it. Now, that's the wrong button. Now, one thing that they have not said in the article is, where is the book? There's the book. Is that they've actually reduced the damage on the book. So, at least I don't see anywhere here where it says that they've reduced the damage on the book. The Shilka, the non-radar variant, they've reduced the dispersion for the autocannons, and they've reduced the base damage in pen for the Menstrual on the Unimog. And again, I'm not sure why. Reduced the aim time for helicopter ATGMs. The KA-52K has had the resupply time increased for either the anti-radiation missile or the cruise missiles. The Super Cobra has had similar treatment for the sidearm. The Guardian, they've moved from airborne troops to SOCOM. And I know that I said that from a gameplay standpoint, it makes more sense for the Guardian to be in SOCOM, because if it's in airborne, you have two helicopters with terminal guided ATGMs in the same spec. And while it does make more sense from a thematic perspective for both airborne and SOCOM, I honestly think it makes sense for the Guardian to stay in airborne, because A, that's where all the Apaches are anyway, and B, I think it fits SOCOM better to have things like the DAP and the Comanche. Maybe if they wanted to take the they could take the AGM-179 and they could put it on the Comanche, or maybe on the DAP, like on the DAP's outer hardpoints. Then, okay, yeah, that would make a bit more sense if you wanted to give SOCOM a terminal-guided helicopter-fired ATGM. But I don't know. Personally, I think the Guardian should have just stayed in airborne. They've also reduced the HP on the MH6 and the AH6, but they've added the soft armor back. Excuse me. They've increased the acceleration on the maximum speed of the Lemire, which is nice. And I note that the Lemire did not have its pen reduced in here. So that is still a pretty powerful ATGM. And then they've reduced the maximum dispersion for rockets, which I think is pretty nice. I saw one person complaining about this, like, oh, if they reduce the maximum dispersion for rockets, it's going to make it harder to hit the backs of vehicles. And it's like, okay. I assume they mean the rocket hitting behind the vehicle and the splash damage applying to the vehicle's rear armor, but, like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And then we have aircraft. Fuel capacity for all aircraft increased by 50%. If I'm going to be entirely honest, I think this has just made fuel tanks redundant on most planes. Because now most planes have... Like, come on, guys. Why does a transport aircraft... Actually, no. Here's a better example. Why does a transport aircraft or a strategic bomber need 15 minutes of loiter time? It's kind of dumb. And if you were to take the this thing has 9 minutes of loiter time with the fuel tanks. I don't think you need the fuel tanks anymore. And then you've got something like the basic Raptor, which I would like to point out. I do have my 400-point Raptor back, which I think is nice. But now instead of 3 minutes of loiter time, it's got 4.5. So prices and cooldowns for all AirTab payloads have been adjusted, which is honestly, it's a change that I do not like, because if you remember in my last video where I went over the updates for the AC-130, the return to deck time with the aircraft was unscathed, was like a minute, and if it was out of ammunition was also a minute. It was like a couple seconds longer. Now, for some reason, they have massively cranked this this figure up, and I'm not sure why. Air-to-air missiles no longer lose accuracy due to pilot stress. I'm pretty sure this was one of those changes that was in the July 2nd update. Remove the chance for pilots to eject when an aircraft is destroyed. Pilots now spawn only after the aircraft is lost due to running out of fuel. If I'm going to be entirely honest, this is one of those changes where it's not so much that I don't see the point of it, but I don't like it. Because I can actually see the point of this. Because if a pilot ejects over enemy territory and the enemy kills it, what you're doing, at least in a multiplayer match, is you're giving the enemy extra destruction score. Like, I get that. Okay, cool. Let me just... actually, no. I get that. I was working on a scenario... I will show it. I was working on a scenario where you have to rescue pilots intermittently throughout the scenario. They would go here, and then you'd have to rescue them. And the problem with that is that now, since pilots no longer spawn when when aircraft are shot down, that's completely banjaxed. I mean, I can get around it. I can use an on-unit dead node to take the aircraft position when it dies and then just have a pilot spawn. But instead of floating to the ground like they're supposed to do, they're just going to spawn on the ground. Or maybe I could have the pilot spawn intermittently throughout the scenario and then move to the evac point. Like, I can get around it, but it's still very annoying and honestly pretty unnecessary. I understand why they did it from a multiplayer perspective, and I get that. But... anyway, accuracy penalty multiplier at panic increased. I'm pretty sure this was in the last update. AirTab flare counts adjusted. So, more for CAS, less for regular jets. Afterburner fuel consumption multiplier reduced from 3 times to 2 times. The KH-29TD has been moved from semi-active guidance to fire and forget. The acceleration and maximum speed has been increased for the long-range air-to-air missiles, which I like. The aim time for all cruise missiles has been reduced, and the aim times for smart bombs has been completely removed. As a balanced alternative, the aim time now begins to count not parallel to the climb, but only after reaching a high altitude. Added a separate drop mode for smart bombs, which completely ignores the laser and is always used during bombing runs. Added a new option allowing units to be dropped one by one or all at once via emergency drop. Availability limits for all 4-card aircraft have been reduced to 2 cards. Again, I'm not sure why. Strategic bombers and transport aircraft now fly high at 1,200 meters during high-altitude flight. You know, honestly, I think it would help if we knew how high they flew prior to this change. Improved strategic bomber behavior when using cruise missiles, which I'm going to have to test it out, but I think that might mean that they fly in a circle when firing cruise missiles. So, which actually I can test out right now. Just as a bit of an aside. I need airborne. I need a Lancer. Just plunk the Lancer down right there. Okay, so it's already on the 24 JASMs. Oh, that was kind of weird.
Supersonic heavy bomber here.
Oh yeah, that is definitely flying a lot higher than it used to. Okay, so just grab a crap ton of missiles and...
Missile fire.
Let's see what it does. Okay, it is flying in a circle. Okay, no, it's not flying in a circle. It's flying... It's flying wavy? No, it's still firing missiles. Okay, I guess it just reached the map border. Well, that mall has now ceased to exist. Also, they added whatever this thing is, and I'm honestly not sure what it is, but they've added it. I don't know what this slider does.
New bearing set.
So, anyway, so the aircraft isn't going to fly mindlessly towards the target anymore, which I guess is nice. Okay, so apparently the audio might have slightly bugged out there. Cruise missile stats, speed, max dispersion damage have been standardized across all variants. I don't think that's going to affect the US very much, because the US has 4 cruise missiles, and none of them are variants relative to the other. Fixed incorrect KH-59 Mark II weapon ID naming, which, if you'll remember, I need VDV, I need the SU-57. If you'll remember, this thing was referred to as the KH-69 in here. Now it's just referred to as the KH-59 M2. So. Base HP has been standardized at 10 for the following units: the Four-Post, the Orion, the Cursor, the Grey Eagle, the Global Hawk, the Predator, the Reaper, and the Sentinel. And it's not mentioned here, but also the HP for the RQ-7 is also 10. And that also brings me on to another change. Now viewing drones views them in the hangar, which I suppose makes a bit more sense, but it is kind of funny to have this massive sodding building for a tiny little drone. I mean, okay, yeah, sure, it makes sense for this. It makes a decent amount of sense for this. It definitely makes sense for this. It also makes sense for, because you need to keep them in a climate-controlled environment. Although I imagine for a hangar this big, you would have multiple of these in here. Then again, if you did that, you... Anyway. But for tiny little drones like this, or this, or this, it is funny. I'm not gonna lie. Economy tweaks. They have made certain units slightly more expensive, I've noticed. VW Igla has been slightly more expensive. VW Dish is slightly more expensive. This, I honestly think a lot of this is just holdovers from the PTE. I mean, VDV Melts is less expensive now. They made the Guardmost Strelki less expensive, which I like now. Honestly, I do. I genuinely do. Because now the Guardmost Strelki is 75 points with 5 RPG 28s. Which is not bad. Personally, I would have maybe kept the price at 80 points and then given them 8 armor. But that's just me. The ambushers have gone down to 80 points. The Spetsnaz GRU has, like, this. Again, these price changes. These are price changes from the PTE. SSO has gone up. Honestly, I think 100 points might be a little steep for them, because as someone pointed out in a... Well, I'm going to point this out in a significantly less rude way than the person who I first saw point this out on the Discord. But if you compare these two, it's maybe a little unfair. So I think SSO could maybe go down to 90 points. Also, one thing I do like to point out is they actually have added little tooltips up here. So this is nice. For that matter, where is a sniper team? There's a sniper team. So this is quite nice. Anyway, PDSS have gotten a lot cheaper with the DP64s. The Spetsnaz VMF have gotten a little bit cheaper. The Spetsnaz VMF, aside from Airborne Riki, Spetsnaz VMF is pretty much the only unit that I would use as a dedicated fire support with their 2 sniper rifles. But aside from that, well, and even then, 120 points is, I mean, it's a 4-man squad, but 120 points might be a little bit steep, honestly. I suppose you can argue that you could use Ranger Snipers, which is also 120 points for these for the same job, but they only have 1 long-range sniper rifle. I mean, they technically have 2 sniper rifles, but only one of them goes out to 1,200 meters. Oh, excuse me. And they do still see further. And they have a laser, which granted is something that VMF and Airborne Riki have. But again, I would be more inclined to use these guys as scouts. And besides, with the buff that they've made to the M2 or to the CQC loadout, and with, as you might notice, a slight price decrease to the Punisher loadout, I don't see people using these guys for their sniper rifles at all. Gonostreliki has gotten more expensive. I'm not sure why. They've gotten slightly less expensive with the Cord. The Guard Sturmoviki has gotten less expensive, which I like. The PTRK Faggot has gotten less expensive base and slightly less expensive upgraded, which again I like. Personally, I think that all Russian HEGMs could use like a 5 or 10. In fact, most Russian infantry units in general could use like a 5 or 10 point price decrease across the board. Force Recon has gotten slightly more expensive. Their CQC loadout has... Hang on, does that mean that their CQC loadout has now matched the price of their standoff? Yeah. Also, I find it very interesting that the laws are above the M1014 in this panel, whereas I think in literally everywhere else the launchers are at the bottom. I don't know. It's this little thing that I've noticed. It doesn't really mean much. Marines have gotten much cheaper at only 80 points. Reserve Marines are also 80 points. I think this is going to make Marines far too strong, to be entirely honest, because I think Marines need something, and honestly, I would have preferred that something to be an extra 100 meters on the M27. But an extra 100 meters on the M27 compared to everyone else, plus a 15-point price decrease on what is already a large, beefy 13-man squad with 8 armor. Yeah, these guys are gonna do really well. Although I don't understand why they standardize the cost between the regular and the reservists. Like... Okay, well, let's... Where is calculator? Oi. Thank you. Alright, 0.3... No. 0.4 times 13 equals 5.2. Okay, so that's 5.2 DPS if they're... Well, actually, no. No, it's not, because the grenade launchers... These aren't given DPS values anymore. Okay, I'm gonna have to work off of in the last update where grenade launcher DPS was listed at 0.3. So 0.4 times 13 and then plus 0.3 times 3 equals... No, that's way too... Okay, so 0.4 times 13 is 5.2. Okay, that's 5.2. 0.3 times 3 is going to be 0.9. So... Yeah. So 5.2 times... So 5.2 plus 0.9 is 6.1. Okay. Oi. Now, Reserve Marines... This is going to be 6.9 DPS. Because there's 10 of these, they're doing 0.3 DPS, which means that's just going to be 3 DPS. There's 3 of these, they're doing 1 DPS, which is also going to be 3 DPS. And there's 3 of these, and if they're all doing 0.3 DPS, it's going to be 0.9 DPS, which is going to be a total of 6.9. 0.3 times 10. .3 times 3. Okay, so 0.3 times 10 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0.9, 6.9. Okay, so Reserve Marines are putting out more DPS, so I can understand why they've cranked the price up a little bit, but they don't have the same armor, and they don't have the same range advantage as the M27, although that's a bit of a moot point, so I wouldn't really consider it. And they don't have any AT whatsoever. Personally, I think I would have just left them at 70. Marine Raiders, the standoff price is... Okay, I just bumped the microphone. The standoff price has been reduced. The Assaultmen, this is literally a change that was in the last patch, so... they have reduced the price for the Cat Javelin and the Cat Toe teams. Well, the Cat Dragon, the Cat Javelin, and the Cat Toe teams. Which, this, I think, is a direct carryover from the PTE. Although, I do like it. It's a direct carryover from the PTE. They've also made the mech riflemans far more expensive. Ranger Snipers, the anti-material loadout has gone down slightly. As have the Punisher loadout for Green Berets, and Delta has also gone down. The Latvian snipers have gone down slightly. They've also increased the price for recon infantry for some reason. Like, I don't understand why the SC Scouts need a 15-point price increase. Okay, now I'm starting to understand why the SC Scouts might need a 15-point price increase, but I still think 15 points is massively excessive. I think they should have just kept Spike SR and the Melts at 800, personally. Just bring the price back down to 75, cut the range down to 800. The reservists have also had their price increased. I'm not sure why. And the Estonians, the Estonian special, or not Estonian special forces, but the Baltic special forces have had their price reduced, which isn't that bad, I don't think. Especially these guys, because if I'm going to be entirely honest, I was, and actually still am, kind of confused as to what these guys are supposed to do. Because they just seem like really good line infantry. Maybe if they had longer range guns, or, I don't know, like an ATGM, then that would make more sense, but as things currently stand, I don't know. Like, they just seem like really good line infantry, and that's pretty much it. The Milan team has gone up to 80. The Javelin team has gone down to 80, even though the Javelin team was only 75 in the last version. And the Spikes team has gone down to 100. The Pleuron team has gotten slightly cheaper. The RBS 70 team has also got slightly cheaper, which means that there's now a 10-point gap between those two and the Groms. Yes. I still don't understand why they needed to nerf this. I mean, it's not that big of a change, yes, but I don't understand why it was necessary, is what I'm trying to get at. And then they've massively increased the price for some of these upgrades, particularly the SDM upgrade for the Sprut and the 120 on the M8. Which, if I'm going to be now I haven't used the Sprut very much. I'm going to be entirely honest, but if I'm going to weigh in on the M8, instead of increasing the price for the 120, I would just increase the load time from 5 to 6 to maybe like 7 to 8 seconds. The BMPT has gotten slightly cheaper. So now that I think is, what is that? 220 fully upgraded? I'm pretty sure that's 220 fully upgraded. And they've also cut the cost down for the Kinzel module on the T-15. And then they have, again, for the artillery, I'm just going to scroll through this. If you want to look at it, you can pause it, but they've just adjusted the prices for a lot of these. I will be covering the artillery later. They've also made helicopters largely cheaper, which again is something that I wanted to see and that I like. I'm not going to go over this either because it's just a long list of numbers. So again, if you want to pause it, you can take a look at it. So I think that's nice. And they've also made planes slightly cheaper. Including they made the Spartan only 80 points, which I like. Fixed an issue where terminal guidance missiles could lose vision because of target's high stealth value. Fixed accumulated stress damage not decaying over time. Technically, I don't think this would be an issue. At least if you're looking for a real life simulator, which Broken Arrow is not. Fixed incorrect processing of multiple simultaneous damage sources. Fixed a game freeze that could occur when bombing a target with an... Okay. So this last one. Fixed a game freeze that could occur when bombing a target with an infinite number of bombs. I may or may not be the reason why that is in this list. Because not long after the July 2nd update came out, I made a little video on my YouTube where I demonstrated this exact thing. And then with Edmund's help, one of the moderators on the Discord, I was able to send that video via email to the developers. And I actually got a response back from them a couple days ago. So this is honestly kind of embarrassing because I don't like to draw attention to myself. But I'm pretty sure I know why, or I'm pretty sure I know how they became aware of that. Anyway, fixed various combat system issues that could lead to a game freeze. Fixed units carrying 0 kilograms of supplies. I'm guessing that was a rounding error. Fixed a default deck being selected instead of the player's own deck. Fixed deck previews not matching actual unit modifications. Fixed unit labels being highlighted through the UI in some cases. Fixed the chat window interfering with unit interaction. Fixed a game freeze that could occur when exiting the game. Fixed the camera attached to unit node not prioritizing unit pin input. Fixed the all in-group refunded checkbox in the all unit refund node. Fixed mission storage synchronization for dynamic tasks, text, and co-op. Fixed camera path origin not updating after rotating object groups with right mouse button in the editor. Okay, so as for my overall thoughts of the for the the update. If I'm going to be entirely honest, so last week I made a video where I listed out a bunch of things from the PTE that I'd like to see make it to live. When I was formulating that video, one thing that I was considering doing and ultimately decided against was making a list of things from the PTE that I did not want to see come to live. Now, they've basically taken that entire, by virtue of just dumping the PTE onto the live server as they have, they've just basically taken everything on that list and moved it to live. But honestly, when I say that, like, I was debating making a list of things that I did not want to see a list of things from the PT that I did not want to see come to live. And since they just dumped the PTE onto live, then, well, yes, everything that I wanted to see, or pretty much everything that I wanted to see come from the PTE is now on live. But so is the things they did not want to see from the PTE is now on live. Like, I think the anti-air ranges from the July 2nd update were fine. I don't see why they needed to change that. I don't see why they needed to mess with the SHORAD missile ranges. I don't see why they needed to mess with certain ATGM ranges like the Melts, the Spike, and the Dragon. There's a number of things that I've already mentioned in this video for just changes that I don't understand the point of. Like increasing the supply radius. I don't. I mean, as I said before in a previous video, my opinion about balance changes does not matter. But as someone who has a lot of time in this game, I like to think that I at least know enough to give a semi-competent evaluation of what I think would be good and bad for it. So that's what I'm trying to do. And if I'm going to be entirely honest, if I'm going to be entirely honest, things like the extra like this I don't get the point of, or this for that matter. This I don't get the point of. A lot of this I don't get the point of either. Like this is nice, okay. This I kind of understand. This I understand. This value maybe could have been axed not quite as badly as it was. The tank damage changes, I prefer the way they were in the July 2nd update. Because now I think tanks are just straight up overpowered. And I think the only way you're going to fix tanks now is you're going to either have to increase their price, which I am very against. You're going to have to increase the reload time, which is just not going to be comfortable, or you're going to have to lower the damage values. So, because otherwise tanks are just going to dominate. I like the aim time reduction for vehicle machine guns and autocannons and grenade launchers and stuff like that, and tank aim time. I like this, honestly. But as for tanks themselves, like all of this, I don't get it. This is another thing I don't understand why they've done it. Just keep the value at 1.25. I've already talked about having only 2 seats on transport vehicles, and I don't think that's going to be super useful. I don't understand why they have changed these pen values at all. I like the aim time reductions for a lot of these launchers. I don't understand why they've increased the ranges on some of these, but I like the aim time reductions on a lot of these. I like that they've standardized the sniper rifle range here, and increasing the sniper rifle range for the T5000 and the Mark 22 isn't too bad, I don't think. I have no idea what this means, and I would like a lot of clarification on that. I like that they've reduced the minimum distance for these weapons. I also like to point out they reduced the minimum distance for the M250 as well. I like that they've moved some of these weapons over the second slot. I've liked that they've given Rangers the KAC. I think they should have just given CQ. They should have just kept the laws for Rangers CQC. If I'm going to be entirely honest, I don't like that they've increased the squad size for the mech infantry. I think, like, I like that they've given them extra firepower, and I think mech MMG with 3 M240s is going to be a little bit nuts. But I would just prefer them stay at 6 and keep the original price values. Because you can give them a mech, you can give mech riflemen this while they're still a 6-man squad. Just cut it down to maybe one M240 and then cut the price down by 10 points. The Cherryberry squad size, I like that. That's not that big of a deal. And excuse me. I like that. That's not that big of a deal. It's not quite the massive 14-man squad that it was from the November 2024 beta. But I can certainly see how they could be more useful. Hang on, I just noticed something. Coastal Cherryberries. Okay, so one of these guys that have the one of these guys that has the because they have 9 AK-103s, 2 of those. Oh, I'm dumb. I can't do basic math. I thought it was for some reason I thought it was a 10-man squad. So I was expecting them to have. I was expecting one guy to have the an AK-103 with the SVU in a second slot. I just can't do math apparently. The PDSS, I don't get why they've changed that. I don't get why they've removed the Aegis 17 from motorized at all. I like the buffs to most of Strelicky. I've already said that, particularly since they're adding the VDV PKP, the VDV Sturm should just get a full thermal barrack loadout for its rocket launchers. Again, I don't understand why they've done this. I don't get exactly what this is going to do. I would like a bit more explanation on that. This, I'm pretty sure, was already from the July 2nd update. And honestly, when it comes to infantry weapons, this is another one of those things that I do not want to see from the PTE. Is the changes that they made to infantry. Excuse me. They've upped infantry optics across the board to 1400. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, as I said before. I understood why they did it for things like machine guns or AGL teams, so you could actually spot enemy infantry coming from 800 meters away, where you could use the full extent of excuse me, of your weapon's range. And I kind of understand why they did it for ATGM teams as well, but just a 1400 meter range, a 1400 meter vision range increase across the board doesn't make much sense to me. But the thing that really doesn't make much sense to me is why they've increased the infantry shooting range by 100 meters across the board for almost everything. Or for almost every basic rifle. Because I'm not sure what it's going to do, but I'd also like to point out that for units like, for example, Delta, it takes away one of their identities. Or it takes away, arguably, their biggest identity, which was their massive range advantage. And, okay, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, but Delta already has a range advantage. They've got 600 meter range firearms. Or that they shoot out to 600 meter range. Everyone else is shooting out to 5. Yes, but everyone else was shooting out to 400 meters before. And since they've reworked these, the KAC and the MRGG are still shooting out to 6. They were shooting out to 700 meters prior to the update. This was one of the reasons why I thought it was kind of weird to give the Rangers a KAC, even though I do want to see them get the KAC, because if you have the guns that are shooting out to 400 to 500 meters, and then you give them two 700 meter light machine guns, that is kind of weird. And it's not just Delta either. You've also got squads like, for example, STT. They're in the same basic boat. The KAC and the MRGGS were shooting out to 700 before, and now they're only shooting out to 600. Instead of having the range differences have closed up a lot, and that may very well be what their intent was, but I think it makes these units less. It makes these units less powerful. And I can already hear the pro-Russian fanboy banging away at their keyboard saying, oh, he's just whining about things that nerf the US, oh, blah, blah, blah. You want to know another unit that actually suffers from the exact same problem? Something that I think is actually a underused unit? It's VDV Spetsnaz. Specifically, it's the standoff version of VDV Spetsnaz. Because these SVDKs also shot out to 700 meters as well. And now they only shoot out to 6. I fully expect the Russian National Guard spec to have guns like these that would have had an extended range. Like guns that would have been on the same level as the MRGGS. Or the KAC. And now, because they've closed up these range gaps, you don't get that. So, and so you've got that. Again, I don't understand this one. this one makes a degree of sense because automatic weapons can't be stressed anyway, so why would it be delayed by stress? Although I'm pretty sure this came in the last update as well. Conquest mode, cool, awesome. I don't play multiplayer. That's not going to affect me that much. I don't understand why they did that. I don't understand why they did that. I don't understand why they did that. I don't understand why they've done that. Although I can see why they might have decided to do it if it was too strong, but this just makes no sense to me because I don't know, just like if you wanted to do anything, just change the APKWS rockets. So, and then there's other changes here. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't understand that they've done in this update and that I don't particularly care for. There's a lot of things in this update that they've done that I don't understand, and there's a lot of things that they've pulled over from the PT that I don't particularly care for. And the single biggest thing, and I haven't mentioned it here, but the single biggest thing that I did not care for from the PTE was the changes to the artillery. And I'm not mentioning that here because I'm going to make that its own dedicated video for why I do not like the artillery. Why I don't like the artillery changes. Now, I said it before in a previous video. My opinion on game balance does not matter. Nobody's opinion does. Only the only opinion that matters is what the developers can discern from the various tools that they have that help them gather game data. Like, if they have a piece of data that says a unit is overperforming, they're going to nerf it. It doesn't matter how many people like it or how many people think it needs to be nerfed. At the same time, if they have a piece of data that's saying a unit is underperforming, they're going to buff it. It doesn't matter how many people think that it's OP. If the data that they're getting says that it's underperforming, they're going to buff it. So player opinion does not matter. My opinion does not matter about what needs to be changed and what doesn't. I like to think that I can provide at least a decent enough, like, I like to think I have at least a decent enough base of understanding to know what is good and what isn't good for the game. So, I don't. Honestly, I think things would help quite a bit if you just reverted the changes to gun range, or to, like, if you revert the infantry gun range changes and the vision range changes, if you revert the tank damage changes and you reverted the artillery change, and you reverted the changes made to air defenses in this update. If you just did those 5 things, I think it would be perfect. So, I mean, like, even if you did do those 5 things, I'd have a couple of points to argue, a couple of minor gripes, but I think it'd still be perfect. What I'm hoping that the developers do is I'm hoping they're going to come back in a couple weeks or maybe a month or 2, and they're going to give the game a balance pass. And I say this because a lot of the well, not necessarily a lot of, but some of the changes that they made in this update sort of rolls back some of the changes that they've made in the July 2nd update. And I don't just mean things like the infinite supplies. So Like, okay, here's an example. You remember how they nerfed the Booker so hard in the last update? Well, all the changes to the Booker except for the frontal kinetic, or not kinetic, the frontal heat protection, have been reverted from prior to the last update. So it's still 190 with the 50mm and APS. Now, sure, you can argue that, oh well, yeah, it's going to be a little bit cheaper. They've increased tank damage. That's just going to punish the Booker even more. Yeah, okay, I can understand that. But why is the 105 now 10 points more? Now, why is the 50mm 0 and the 105 10 points instead of the 105 being 0 and the 50mm being 10 points? So I'm hoping the developers come back in a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two, and they just do a large balance pass, because I think tanks are going to be OP. Air defenses, I don't understand why they have to be so complicated with their different radar values and stuff. Infantry range and vision, like, I don't get it. I genuinely don't. And I think that leads me on to my core point. If I had to choose between this update and the July 2nd update as a point to move forward, which one would I pick? And I honestly think I'd pick the July 2nd update as a point to move forward. Yes, even with the asymmetric application of sneak, even with the infinite supply issue, I think I would still, like... Here's the thing. I never preferred the PTE over live. I always preferred live. And the reason why was because while I did like a number of the changes from or on the PTE, a bunch of the other changes were so like all encompassing that I did not think that it would be good for the game. And it's not just all encompassing, it's also excessive. So I've already said that I don't really see the point in the extra range for infantry weapons. Which I'd also like to point out, it's not just the extra range. They've also brought back the weird armor penetration values, which again I don't see and understand. I don't understand why. They've also brought the extra range, the minimum 1400 meter vision range. That doesn't make sense to me. The oh, it's stuffy in here. Excuse me. The extra 1400, or the base 1400 meter range doesn't make any sense to me. The extra 100 meter range doesn't make any sense to me, or just the whole tightening up the infantry weapon ranges in general. That doesn't make any sense to me. I would prefer the way it was before. If you remember in the July 2nd update, what they said was their goal was to merge the PTE and live. In the July 2nd update. This is not merging the PTE and live. This is just taking the PTE, dumping it onto live, and then making a few balance adjustments that are similar to what they made in the last update. And honestly, I don't like that. So I really do genuinely hope the developers come back in a couple of weeks and they just give the game a nice all-encompassing balance pass to make it more akin to live. But I don't know. At time of recording, they haven't said anything about that.
and at time of recording, it is... What time is it? It is exactly 2 a.m. on Friday, July 31st. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on the latest update. There's a lot of stuff here that I do like, but I would like to see it applied to the base game, and not to just see the PTE thrown onto live. Excuse me. Yes, technically, everything on my list of things that I would like to see make it to live came to live. But it came to live by virtue of the PTE, all of the PTE being dumped onto live, and I don't think that is a good thing. Anyway, thank you for watching. I mean, I have more than a dozen subscribers. People are apparently finding these videos worthy of their time, so thank you for watching. And yeah, that's pretty much it.